Hi, my name is Gareth, and today I'd like to talk about what is arguably the most controversial drink on the specialty coffee menu, the Americano. In a sense, there's a feeling that the Americano is very much associated, or has become associated, with bigger chains, more commercial grade coffee, and in trying to create this point of difference within the specialty industry, many independent coffee shops are trying to distance themselves from the drink. Hence, they will often choose not to serve an Americano. The trouble is, the average consumer is going to know the Americano as the black drink offering. It's what they're used to, and by taking it off our menus completely, we are potentially causing a bit of a barrier to enticing that customer into our way of working. Surely it's better to keep the Americano on and yet make the Americano the best we can possibly make it. Make it the best Americano they have ever tasted. Quite simply, an Americano is espresso diluted with hot water. There's a bit of a story behind where it came from. I think it's a bit of a myth. There's possibly no real truth behind it, but it potentially dates back to World War II. The American troops based in Italy were used to drinking filter coffee or drip coffee back at home in America. That's a much weaker brew than the standard espresso served by the Italians. So to kind of compensate for this added strength, the troops would add small amounts of hot water to the espresso. We have a really simple approach to making an Americano. We will fill a cup to a certain point with hot water, and then we will make the espresso directly on top of that water. There's a really simple reason for choosing water first, and that is to reduce the temperature of the water in the cup. Unless you've got a sophisticated temperature controlled water boiler that can adapt to different temperatures, then the water out of an espresso machine or a standard hot water boiler is going to be a little bit too hot to pour directly onto the espresso. So a standard espresso machine is brewing at around about 95 degrees Celsius. A standard water boiler is about 98 degrees, and the water out of your espresso machine's steam boiler will be tipping towards 120 degrees. So once you've produced your espresso at 95 degrees, the last thing you really want to do is pour hotter water on top of it, particularly that scorching hot water out of the steam boiler. Better to put the water into the cup first, let it cool slightly as you grind your shot, and then make the shot directly into the cup. It's worth mentioning at this point another drink called the long black. There is one train of thought with the long black, that you define it by whether you put water into the cup and put the espresso on top, or whether you put the espresso into the cup and put water on top. A more accurate description of the definition between a long black and an Americano is a long black is generally a slightly shorter drink. It's got a bit more strength to it. An Americano is a slightly longer drink. I tend to find that water around about 85 degrees Celsius is best for getting the best flavour out of Americano. It's where I prefer to drink if I'm going to drink one. Surely drinking coffee should be a relaxing and enjoyable experience. If adding milk and sugar enhances your enjoyment of that coffee, then go for it. There is going to be a water to coffee ratio that works best for you in your establishment. So your grinder and your espresso machine will produce a shot of espresso at a certain strength, and there'll be an optimum amount of water that will create the best tasting coffee for you. Have you ever tasted the water out of your espresso machine boiler? It's worth doing this. If you think about it, the core or the main product in an Americano is the water. And that water comes from a different place to the water that makes the espresso. And it comes from your steam boiler. And it really is worth tasting it. So all you do is just dispense a cup of water out of your espresso machine and let it cool slightly and taste it. If you're happy with the taste, then by all means continue to use that water to make an Americano. But if you're not happy with that taste, you may need to take some steps to improve how it tastes. One way to get away from that kind of the taste issues is to occasionally or periodically drain the water out of your steam boiler and then refill it with fresh water. And most steam boilers these days have some form of tap that you can use to do that. Just please release all the pressure from your steam boiler before you start opening taps. An Americano is definitely not just a filter. They are completely different drinks. And to understand that, you kind of got to understand how the two are produced. To make a filter coffee, the water passes through the coffee and it also passes through a paper filter. And that paper filter pulls out all the insolubles and the oils. So what you have in here is dissolved coffee solids in water. You have nothing but kind of a mesh basket in an espresso machine. Therefore, you get both solubles and insolubles passing into the cup. So you have a solution in here and you've also got suspended particles in here. And those suspended particles add something completely different, a different kind of character to the coffee. I've seen people do this, and please don't. You cannot just run the espresso shot until the cup is full. It might be something you do at home because it's the kind of style of coffee you enjoy, that's fine. But if you work in a coffee shop, please, please, please don't serve that to your customers. To understand why not, you need to kind of understand a little bit about how espressos are made. So when we run a shot of espresso, we are dissolving solids into the cup, and we've also got some insolubles coming into the cup. And there's a point in time in the shot where we've got the optimum amount of those solids. If we don't stop the shot at that point, we start to flush or extract low-grade solids into the coffee. The term we use for it in the industry is over-extraction. The longer your shot runs, typically beyond about 30 seconds, the more of these low-grade particles you are washing into your coffee or into your espresso. They're going to taste bitter. They're going to have a drying finish. It's not going to give you the kind of rounded coffee that you would be hoping for. If we increase the amount of water as well, if we use more water, we're flushing even more of these low-grade particles into the cup. In fact, because we've got no kind of barrier, the bottom of the basket in the espresso machine, the longer the shot runs, we're actually forcing very, very, very fine particles of coffee through into the cup. It's not an Americano, and it's not the kind of shot you want to be serving in a coffee shop. If you want to make the best possible Americano, there's a few things you need to decide first of all. First and foremost, you need to decide whether or where to get the water for your Americano. Test the water you have, taste it. Is it good enough? Is the quality good enough? Are you going to take it from your espresso machine? Do you have an independent water source you can get it from? Do you need to invest in some kind of a water heater to improve the quality of your Americano? The second thing you need to do is determine the dilution level of your Americano. How much water are you going to use to that shot of coffee you're going to make? And I would suggest you make Americanos at different dilutions until you come to an agreement in your team. You then need to establish a routine so that everyone follows the same process to making an Americano, a brand standard if you like. And our advice is water first, wherever you get it from, allow it to cool slightly and dispense the espresso on top. And if you have time, and only if you have time, it's worth lifting the cup up to the portafilter. The closer you are to the portafilter, the nicer the finish you'll have on top of the coffee. But a word of warning, I believe that efficiency of service is more important than making the perfect looking Americano. If you have time, if you're having a quiet day, a slow day, then by all means hold the coffee up to the portafilter. But if you're busy and if you've got customers waiting for drinks, then efficiency takes over. Just let the water or the coffee drop into the water. If you've got any thoughts, questions or comments, please feel free to get in touch, and thanks for listening.